Alright, if you've been following along so far, we set up our three main pages using some of the iOS components. If you haven't followed along, again, go to the mockups folder in the resources for this project, and then open up mockups, and then go ahead and just open the lesson that's closest to this one, and just import that and follow along. Alright, so now it's time to design our request page, but before we do that, let's go ahead and set up our tab bar properly. So go ahead and open up our resources for this project. Once you're in here, go ahead and open the icons folder and then open up tab bar. And then you'll see three icons here for our tab bar. But we want to go ahead and actually add these in our components rather than these instances here. So go ahead and just select one of the tab bars here and then click go to master component here. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and now drag these icons into here. Let's go ahead and just drag them, and then let's go ahead and hold shift and resize them here. And click this constrain proportions, and then let's give them a width of 32. I'm just going to click this here and then add a layout grid, and let's go ahead and choose column and count of 3, and then just change the opacity to 5%, and let's go ahead and close that. And this is where layout grids get handy. So let's go ahead and just double click in here and move these icons accordingly. We'll want our past services here. We want to switch these two, so we have our request tab here, and then our profile here as well. Let's open up our layers panel so we see what we're doing here. Let's get rid of this tint color. The tint color on this one and the tint color here. And then let's go ahead and just center these. Let's select our grid here and change the gutter to 2. That's better. And then go ahead and just center those along. That looks good. Let's add a text for each of them. So use T. Let's do profile. Resize this to maybe 14. And let's go ahead and just move that up. I think we can move our icons up just a bit. Let's do 5 pixels. Same thing here. And lastly here. And then just use Command D here. And one more time. Just make sure this is aligned. Now let's go ahead and just change the text here. We'll do services. And then we'll do request. Go ahead and just center those along. Same thing here. So let's go ahead and now remove the layout grid here. I think that looks good. We do want a way to show which tab is active. Alright, so in order to show which page we're on, we're going to have a different selection color based on the tab that's selected. So let's create 3 instances for each of these being selected. And to do that, I'm going to just go ahead and select my whole component here. Use Alt and drag away another one here, down here. And then just use Command D 2 more times. So we have the main component here and then 3 instances of that component. And then I'm going to create a component from each of those. So let's do component and then rename this one to tab bar / profile selected. Select this one here, create component, rename to tab bar / request selected. And then lastly here, we're going to create a component here and do tab bar / services selected, and there we go. And again, we're doing that so that we can easily toggle between each one in our mockup designs. So now head on over here to the tab bar / profile selected, and then let's go ahead and select our icon here. Change the selection color using the styles to our primary color. Same thing for the text here, and then applying this, the primary color. Let's do the same thing here, but for request. And lastly, let's do the same thing for services selected. One more time, I'm just going to go in here and make sure everything's centered. I think now everything's centered perfectly. Let's go ahead and go back to our mockups page now. And now, as you can see, I have this beautiful tab bar here showing different pages. Let's go ahead on our request page here. Go to where it says tab bar here, and then let's switch it to iOS UI components, tab bar, and then do request selected. There we go. And then let's do the same thing for profile. Let's go ahead and click this tab bar and do tab bar. And this one's profile selected. And last but not least, let's do tab bar, services selected. There we go. So we have a tab bar now designed for every page. And then we're going to go ahead and jump into designing our request page in the next lesson. To get started on our request page here, really quickly, let's switch over to our drawing here. So first things first, we want a little reload or the refresh icon here. We want our little map snippet here to be able to tap and go to our map page to set our address. And then it will be nice to show a pin of our currently selected address, I guess. And then we want a laundry request tab right here. And with a little store card in here. We'll go ahead and design the store card later. For now, let's go ahead and get the whole layout started here. So let's work our way from the top to the bottom. First things first, I want to go ahead and create a little rectangle here. Just go ahead and choose a size of maybe 250 pixel here in terms of the height. Make sure the width is fully taking the horizontal space here. We're going to insert our map in here, but before we do that, I actually tested the map box design instead, and I think it looks a little bit better than the Google Map, at least for iPhone applications. Maybe in an Android application, it would look good, but here I want to go ahead and actually change my map in this page and then in this page using a different type of map. So let's go ahead and really quickly go back to our map page here. Let's go back to the rectangle here that's creating our map, and then let's go ahead and run the map maker plugin again. And this time, choose the tab where it says map box. Let's do a zoom level of 15, and then just go ahead and make map. I think that looks slightly cleaner. I just want to change the shadow here of my rectangle here. Yeah, so for the first shadow here, I just want to change the opacity to maybe, let's do 7% here, so it's not too strong. I think that looks good. Let's apply the same thing here with the map. So let's go ahead and select this rectangle here and run the map maker plugin here. Go to map box. Let's go ahead and make the map here. One thing here, you'll notice it's covering my status bar, so let's use command and opening bracket here to just move it down. I think that looks good. And now my status bar is kind of blended in with the map. So I'm going to create a little rectangle just to cover kind of the top portion here. And let's go ahead and move this underneath my status bar. I'm going to lock the status bar layer. And now let's go ahead and make this rectangle maybe slightly bigger here. I think something like this would work. And then let's go ahead and change the fill to white color here. Maybe give it an opacity of 50%, and then let's add an effect of background blur. Let's bump this blur to maybe 25. We can do 30 here. That's good. So now my status bar isn't blending in as much with my map, which is what I want. Again, this is part of UX. You want to make sure that your users are able to see their status bar without it blending into your own app. So let's go ahead and now switch back to my resources folder, go into icons, go into request. Let's go ahead and drag these two icons in here. First, let's go ahead and constrain the proportions and resize them to 38. And let's go ahead and just select this whole thing and bring it here. And I'm going to place my map pin somewhere around here. I'm going to go ahead and change the selection color to blue. Add an effect of a drop shadow and maybe change the Y here to 8. Or let's do 10. blur, set the blur to 10 and maybe the opacity to 15. Let's just see how that looks. I think that's better. Let's go ahead and also give a selection color of blue to my button here. Now let's go ahead and just move it up here. And I want to go ahead and also give this a drop shadow, but this time make the opacity or the Y 0, make the blur maybe 10, and bring the opacity down to maybe 15%. I think that's good for now. That button can definitely be a little bit more visible. Now if I switch over to my designs here, we want the laundry request tab over here. So let's go ahead and create a rectangle from maybe over here all the way down to my tab bar. Just want to zoom in here, make sure it's not actually covering my tab bar. I think that's good. Let's change the fill to white. And hold Alt so we can separate our corner radius here and make this one 20, and then we can do 20 on this one too. Now remember, once you hold Alt once, essentially you're separating your corner radius for each corner. So you don't need to hold Alt once you see this little circle inside of our border radius control here. So right now, each corner will act independent of the other one. So you can go ahead and resize them without having to hold Alt. Let's add a drop shadow of, let's do -10. Or actually -6 here. Increase the blur to maybe 15 or even 20. And then bring the opacity down to maybe 8%. I think that looks good. I definitely don't like my button here. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to wrap this in an oval. So let's go ahead and use the O key. And right now I'm actually placing that inside of that frame. So I don't want to do that. So let's go ahead and do it here. Maybe do 48 by 48 and then resize this to, let's do 32 or actually even 30 by 30. Let's go ahead and change the fill for this one to white, and then just make sure you select the whole refresh frame here and then move that over to here. Use command close bracket to bring it up. That looks good. Just going to use command G to group these together and then place it here. And let's go ahead and finally add a drop shadow of 0, X and Y, and just a blur of 10. We can even do blur of 15 and do opacity of 15 as well. That looks better. Let's go ahead and jump in here and just remove that drop shadow from the reload icon or the refresh icon here. We just want it applied to the circle here. And on second thought, maybe I want to actually increase the opacity to 20%. I think that looks a little bit better. Feel free to play around with these kinds of things just to see what looks better, what feels right to you. Now let's go ahead and add a text in here, and let's actually go ahead and choose laundry store and change the font size here to maybe 24 or maybe 22 and move it up here. Let's group these together and then go ahead and just center them along. And let's go ahead and create a rectangle. Why don't we do 295 by 295? Then just center that here. That's pretty good. I'm going to hold Shift and Alt and actually make it slightly smaller. Maybe do 275 by 275, and then add a corner radius of 20. Now let's go ahead on over to my assets here. Go to local components, open up components, and then go ahead and drag one of these buttons in here, the enabled state, and center that along. And then change the text to request service. Let's go to the layers panel and make sure that's part of this button is part of this group. Just go ahead and place this inside of here as well. So yeah, all of that is now in one layer or one group. Cool. So there we have it. I think that's pretty good. That's a good start. If I switch back, we have almost all the elements in here. We will get into designing the store card in the next lesson. So feel free to go to the next lesson now to start designing our store card here. All right, so now we're ready to design our little store card here. And we're gonna, of course, create a component for that so that we can reuse it and make multiple ones in the future if we need to. So let's go ahead and just click this here, use Command C here and go to our components. Let's go ahead over here and paste that in here. Now, of course, it's blending in with the background here, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a fill of white. Let's click on it and first turn it into a component. So this is a component now, so let's go ahead and add a rectangle inside. I think right here would be good. This is where our image will go. So let's go ahead and actually stretch it to maybe height of 150 pixels. And I'm just going to change the fill to a darker fill here. And then let's go ahead and give this a border radius of 20 as well. Same thing here. Again, for the very first corner, use Alt so that you separate the border radiuses here. If you can't get it right, you can always tweak that from here as well. So I think that looks good. What else do we need in our store card? Let's just go down here. Of course, this will be where the image goes. We need a store name, a dollar per item, turnaround time, and the rating. Let's work on each of those separately. So first, let's start with our store name. That will go here. Duplicate that and do dollar per item. And for now, let's just go ahead and put $0 per item. Remember, this is just a component. In each instance, we will be able to change that and adjust. And I'm going to resize this one to maybe 14. I think that's pretty good. We can probably bring these down just a little bit more so we give more room to our image. Pretty good. Let's go ahead and just duplicate this one here and keep a spacing of 15 from the sides. And let's change this one to 0 days and then use right align for this one so I can stretch this out if I want. We want to use left align here and then go ahead and stretch that out. Use left align. Or actually, we don't want to stretch it out all the way. We want to just do here. And let's resize this one to maybe 20. That's better. Let's go ahead and duplicate this one up here and do 0 stars, or actually 0. This will be for our rating here. So we can do 0.0. So let's go ahead and just zoom in, and so let's go ahead and create a star for my rating here as well. Again, the beautiful thing about Figma is that you can create a star from the shape tools here. So let's go ahead and draw one while holding shift. Maybe do a size of 25 by 25 and just center that here along with this. Cool. In my star tools, I can go ahead and increase and decrease the count. We're going to keep it at 5. We can go ahead and make the star have a higher ratio or a lower one if we want a sharper. And we can also change the border radius here. Now this is way too much, so what I'm going to do, I don't want to go with the sharp edges that it has right now, so we can go to the side over here and even assign a corner radius using the decimal. So let's do let's try 0.5 here. I think that looks good. Now our star can have multiple states. It can either be just gray like this, it can be half filled, and then maybe it can be fully filled. As an example, in my sketch here, I have a fully filled star, but if I want to have just a half filled star, I can do that too. So why don't we create a component from this, but keep in mind you can't create components inside of another component. So why don't we go ahead and drag this star out of here and then go ahead and just give it a fill of lighter gray here. Maybe do this color is good. Let's create a component right here. Let's go ahead and just zoom in just to see my star here, I'm going to do Command D and then just put that instance inside of my component and create 2 more stars for my other states. So I'm going to name one filled, the other one half filled, and the last one unfilled. So let's for the unfilled one here, let's just leave it as it is. So for the half filled one, let's go ahead and give it a color of gold here. Let's just go ahead and create some sort of kind of gold color here. Of course, I can't see that because it's covered by the filled one. So let's go ahead and just hide this one. And I think something like this would work. I'm just going to copy that hex and apply it to the other one as well. So the filled one works, unfilled one works, and then we just want to do the half filled one. So let's take advantage of of the Boolean groups by creating a rectangle here over the star like this. First, let's change the rectangle's color to this color right here with a hex code of just 6 Ds, and then choose the rectangle and the half filled shape. And using our Boolean groups, let's click intersect selection. That looks good. So now if I want to use that in here, we'll hold Alt, bring a copy in here. I think that looks pretty good. I just want to go ahead and center this along. Maybe move it a little bit here. Perfect. Cool. I think we're ready to add this to our design. Let's just go ahead and rename it to store card. And let's also rename this one to just star. That looks good. Let's go back to our mockups. And let's go ahead and just delete this square right here. Then go to assets here. And then now you'll see we have this store card here. Let's go ahead and drag it in. Just center it along here. And just go to the layers. And I want to make sure that I add it to my group. Right below, choose laundry store. Alright, so it looks like the background here is completely blending in with the background here. So let's go ahead and select our component or the instance here. Go down to effects and let's add a drop shadow with maybe a Y of 8. Let's try 10. And let's do a blur of maybe 30, or actually 20 would work. I'm going to drop the radius to maybe, the opacity here to maybe 10%. We're going to do 12. I think that looks good. So let's go ahead and just fill the data here. Let's go ahead and change the store name here to Jack's Laundry. I'm just randomly putting store names here. Let's do a rating of 3.5 and a turnaround time of, let's do 2 days, and then change the dollar per item to maybe, let's do $1 an item. All right, so now we want to put an image in here in this rectangle over here. Let's go ahead and use the tool here, place image. Then let's go ahead and choose images, store cards, and I'm just going to go ahead and choose one of these images here. This one looks good. And now if I hover over a certain object or shape here, such as this rectangle, and I click, it will go ahead and actually put that image inside of that rectangle. So now let's go ahead and just duplicate this 2 times. One's going to go over here and the other one's going to go on the other side here. Let me just hide my profile frame here just so that we can edit this. I'm just going to rename this to Rose's Laundry. Let's do, and then give it a rating of 4.5. And then we can change the star here by selecting it. And now if we click into that, we can actually go ahead and choose which one we're showing. Right now we're showing this intersect one, but let's go ahead and hide that and do a filled one. Let's maybe change the turnaround time to 1 day and then do $1.20 an item. Let's go to this one here too and change it to Bob's Laundry. Give it a star of, I don't know, let's do 2.5. Change the turnaround time to maybe 3 days, and then change the star here by hiding my other two to the unfilled, and then change the price to maybe, I don't know, 80 cents an item. So to replace these images, you can just go ahead and double click, go to the image here, and then do choose image. Let's do another image. There we go. And then just close that and do this one here. Choose image. And then let's choose this one. There we go. So now we're going to go ahead and just place these into our frame here. Go ahead and have both selected and then drag them into the request and then into the group. And then while we have them selected, let's go ahead and just constrain the proportions and change them to maybe 255. Actually, we can even do 245. Just move them around. The other one here, just make sure it has the same spacing. Let's select all three of these and make sure they're vertically aligned. And it looks like they are. Lastly, I'm going to go ahead and just decrease the shadow on this one to do maybe a Y of 5 and a blur of 10. Maybe just choose an opacity of 6% instead, and same thing here. I think that looks good. We can even actually go ahead and bring this refresh icon to up here and have it join the rest of the group here. There we go. I think that looks better. Get rid of that circle, and I think that looks better. So there we have it. That's our request page. Before I forget to do so, I'm going to go ahead and, well, first let's go ahead and just collapse the request page and the map page here. I'm going to go to the services page and just make sure it's also collapsed. I'm going to go ahead and just unhide my profile page. Cool. So now I think we're ready to jump into our next pages here. All right, so I think we're ready to get started designing our profile page here. It looks pretty straightforward. We have a little picture for the user here with a name and email here, an edit button here, and then we have a little map widget of their address. We have payment, support, and then logout. So let's get started on designing this page here. So in the profile page here, I'm going to go ahead and first thing make this edit button a little bit smaller. Let's do font size of 20 and change the font weight to medium here, or let's do semi-bold. That looks better. So let's go ahead and first add our oval here for the profile picture. And we could do 100 by 100 for the size. And let's just keep a spacing of 25 pixels from the left. And let's go ahead and add a text for first and last for their name. And just go ahead and drag a copy using Alt, and then do email at domain.com. Let's go ahead and just move these down, and I think that looks good. Let's just resize this one to maybe 18 and the name here to 22. To add a profile photo here, I'm going to actually go up to my plugins here, do manage plugins. Let's go ahead and browse all plugins here, and I'm going to use this one right here called avatars. If you can't find it, just go ahead and search avatars and then install this one right here. Once it's installed, we can go back to our project, and then with your circle or ellipse selected, go to plugins and then do avatars. Cool. So I think that looks good. Moving on, we have our map option. So why don't we just go ahead and use Alt on this rectangle with the map already in there and bring it over here. So we'll just resize it until we get a spacing of 25 on both sides. That looks good. Let's go ahead and resize the height to 100. Give it a border radius of 20. And let's just move it down a little bit, and then let's move this or copy this icon over to Just put it in the middle here, just slightly above middle. Let's group these together. We want to also add the address here. So why don't we go ahead and duplicate this pin here, and then maybe make it, of course, constrain, and then do, let's try 20. Let's try 18 in terms of the width. I'm just going to zoom in here. And let's do a left align here. Do a text. 1, 2, 3, 4. Address. Lane. Just as a placeholder. And let's go ahead and do a font size of 18. Move this up here. I think that looks good. Just going to move it down a little bit. And then I think we just need payments, support, and logout here. So let's create another rectangle here and just do 325 by 55, and maybe do a corner radius of 10 here. Bring it up a little bit, maybe a little bit lower than that. And let's do a text, and then let's do payment. Align that here. So let's first change the fill to primary. Change the fill of the text to white, and then go ahead and duplicate another one here. Make that larger, and left align, right align. And let's do, I'm using Alt or Option and then doing the 8 key to insert these little circles. And let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. And that kind of represents the credit card or the payments option. I think we can even make this a little bit bigger, like let's do 65 here. And then center these along. There we go. Let's go ahead and group them together using Command G. And let's go ahead and name it payment button. Let's duplicate it. Then we have support. So let's do support. Let's delete the text here, and let's go back to our login page here. Copy this. Go back here and paste that in. So pasted it up here, but I want to just go ahead and just drag that in here instead. Let's go ahead and resize that to 22, or actually let's do 28. And then vertical line. And what do we have here? We have like 20, right? Yeah, let's do move it around until it's here. Now let's go ahead and make a last button copy here as well. So let's go ahead and first make sure that's part of this group here, and then rename that group to support button. And then let's do log out, and let's just create a little arrow icon here. And right now you can barely see it. It's really small, so let's go ahead and make the thickness 3. That looks good here. Let's change the stroke color to white. So I've just zoomed in here, but as you can see, this edge is kind of harsh, whereas over here we have a round kind of nice edges or corners. So we're gonna go ahead and just double click into this line here for the arrow. So this step is important. Go ahead and select this point right here, so we can apply changes to just this point. Then go to the 3 dots over here, and then do a cap of round. Cool. So that has a rounded cap as well over there. You can do this to any lines. Well, let's just zoom out and just escape to return out of there. Let's just make sure that this is actually centered here. Looks like now it's centered. And let's just go ahead and move the arrow inside the last button here. Change the name to log out button. And I think, let me just see how my spacing is. I can move it to a couple pixels right, and that's aligned now. I think that will work. One thing we can do here, we can go to our logout button and change the primary color to the orange here, just to kind of signify that this is a logout option. Feel free to play around with that and see what looks good. But I think looking at my sketch here, we've gotten pretty close to what we want for our design. I'm just going to go ahead and zoom completely out to see where we are. Yeah, I think that looks good. All right, we're almost done our design here. As you can see, we've completed our login page, our tutorial page, payment and map page. And we've even gone through our request and profile page and even added constraints for our design, which is great. So now we're ready to get into designing our last page here. Let's go ahead and just zoom into here. And let's go ahead and open up our sketch that we had. So this page is super simple. Essentially, we just want to list a bunch of services or previous orders or requests that the user has made, or even active ones. So if they have a laundry service actively running right now, we'd want to show this here as well, so that the user can see what the status of their laundry is. So as you can see here, we're going to place it in kind of a list format for all the services that they have. So let's go ahead here and just zoom in here and see what exactly we want to have in our list over there. So we want the store name, we want a date and time where the request took place, we want the current status, and then a little price text over here to show them how much they were charged. And then we just want to have a little caret icon here just to allow them to go into that request and maybe see more information about it, or maybe contact the store, or a bunch of other options that you can add for your own design. We won't get into that page in this course, but I will leave that as an exercise for you. So if you do want to go ahead and design a page for them to see their request, by all means, go ahead and do so. And you can even send it to me by email and I'll be happy to provide some feedback to you. Awesome. So let's switch back to our mockup here. And first thing I want to do is create a component for each of my list items. And of course, I think by now you know where we put our components. It's in the components page here. So let's go over there and let's go ahead and create a rectangle using the R tool. And I'm just creating a rectangle. First thing, let's go ahead and give it a fill of white. And actually, let's go ahead and change the width to 375. I think that's the width of the iPhone size that we're working with here, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, 375 by 812. So let's go back here. Let's do 375 and let's do 110 for the height here. I think that's good. We already have some text in here, so as a designer, you always want to reuse components or reuse different elements in your design instead of creating new ones, just because it saves a ton of time. So let's go ahead and just select a couple things in here, like these three texts, maybe even, yeah, I think that's good. And then use Command C to copy it, and then head on over to this rectangle here and paste that in here. Right now, this is not a component, so let's select everything in here and use Command Option K, and that makes it a component. And now we can dig in and move stuff around. So I think we can have the store name closer up here. Let's see what we had in our design. Yep, something similar. Then we have a price and status. So let's do a price. Let's go ahead and move this here. Just give it some spacing for our caret. And then let's go ahead and move this here instead and do a left align. Just go ahead and align that over there. Let's see what kind of spacing we have. Let's do 15 by 15 here in terms of the spacing from left and bottom. And then let's go ahead and just do day, month, year. And then maybe do HHMM to represent hours and minutes. I think that looks good. So let's go ahead and make sure this right here is centered vertically. Perfect. And then I'm going to duplicate this text using Command D, right align it, and then just move it all the way to where I have my $sign icon. Let's change the text to status. Cool. I think that's good. We just want to add our caret icon here. The easiest way to do that is to draw an arrow line. So I'm going to do Shift L as a shortcut, create a line here. Let's zoom in. Go ahead and double click into here and just take this end of the line and bring it all the way here. So we just have a nice carrot icon here. I'm gonna use done here to get out of there. Just gonna zoom out and then bring my carrot over here, make it a little bit bigger. Maybe do a thickness of 2, maybe 2.5. I think that's good. And then I want to make sure that I place it right in the center. And then let's change the stroke color to, I can't really see that here. That works. Let's go ahead and rename this component service list. And let's head on over to our mockups now and insert that component by going to assets. Now we see right here we have a service list. Let's go ahead and drag that in. So already I can tell I want to make a couple changes to it. I think we can make it a little bit smaller, and then let's go ahead and add a divider as well so we can kind of see the next option in the list and differentiate between them. So I'm just going to quickly go back into components. Let's select the whole component and make it 95 pixels in height. And then I'm going to bring my store name a few pixels down. And then maybe align these here instead, and these ones as well. And then really bring them a few pixels down, and then go ahead and put this one in the center again. I think this will work. So let's go ahead and draw a line. Make sure to keep it straight using Shift and have it stretch all the way. Use stroke color. Let's use Control C and go ahead and just select that color from the carrot. And then maybe maybe we can make it a little bit lighter. We want it to be subtle. I think that's good. And let's go ahead and just select it and bring it all the way down, just 1 pixel at the bottom. Okay, I think we have that right here. So now if we go to mockups, I think that looks better. We can just go ahead and use Alt to bring that down, and then hit Command D a bunch of times just to see how that would look like. I think this works.